So I woke up today and I realized I've had a lot of intrusive thoughts recently, football intrusive thoughts, whether they're draft related or dynasty or fantasy in general or just football. I made a list of them and I posted them on Twitter, so you can go follow me over there. And I kind of want to go through them today for no real rhyme or reason. This might be of zero value to any of you guys, but I woke up and I was inspired. So hopefully this inspires one of you guys out there. Maybe to get mad at me. I don't know. So we're going to run through the list, give you my quick thoughts on why I wrote all these things, and then maybe a few bonus at the end. The first of which is that I need Jameis Winston in New York as the Giants quarterback. They don't have their quarterback situation settled right now, and Jameis Winston with Malik Neighbors would not only feed families, but possibly the entire Eastern Seaboard. Malik Neighbors is, in my opinion, as talented as Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Raw for raw, click for click, brick for brick, pure talent level. And I'm going to need 170 Jameis Winston targets out of him because I think Malik Neighbors might actually break many receiving records if that were to happen. Moving on to point number 2, the Chicago Bears on paper just had like a legendary 6 or 7 day run here. They very quickly identified that their weakness was the interior of their offensive line. They went out and got Joe Thuney from the Chiefs, Drew Dalman from the Falcons as their center, which is going to be such an underrated loss for us, and Jonah Jackson from the Rams. So their interior of their offensive line went from being one of, if not the worst in the NFL, to, I don't want to say again, I think with a lot of like these on paper moves, they don't tend to work out. Like there's a very real chance that at least one of these goes down in flames, one player, maybe one of them gets hurt. Like before you know it, it might not be as impactful as it seems on paper, but if it runs its course correctly, this will be a swap in momentum for this offense that is 180 degrees, and that's, they want to give Caleb Williams a chance to succeed. And if you're getting pressure up the middle every single time and you force him to scramble outside, you're not going to allow him to do that. So absolutely love these signings for him. Really fucking pissed. They also took Grady Jarrett. Felt personal. No need to take both of our big men on the interior there, but such is such, all right? Move over to point number 3. Sticking with the Chicago Bears. Now, the Chicago Bears, I was told, we're going to actually class this into point number 4 as well. I was told DeAndre Swift was actually really good last year because he went for 1,300 total yards from scrimmage. Very high raw number. Now, in the day and age of 17 games, I was like, I'm surprised. That's what I was like. I'm surprised. When I went to look at the numbers, there were 20 running backs last year that went for over 1,300 yards from scrimmage. Many of them missed time, too. That does not include James Cook, who didn't hit 1,300 yards. So we're talking about 2/3 of the NFL starting running backs went for 1,300 yards from scrimmage. That is the type of league that we are currently playing in. So that is not an impressive number, considering DeAndre Swift also had one of the lowest touchdown totals of all those running backs, plus had a lot more carries than the majority of the guys that were underneath him, okay? So DeAndre Swift, not good. What I would love to see with this new interior line is the Bears have 3 things. They have Ben Johnson, who came over from Detroit, that ran a flawless offense through Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. They also have the 39th and the 41st overall pick. That is premier landing spots for 2 former college teammates in Treveyon Henderson, who was like Jahmyr Gibbs, and Quinshon Judkins, who is like David Montgomery. I don't know why his last name is so hard for me to say. It just comes out as junk. Maybe that's foreshadowing. Maybe that's someone telling me, destiny telling me that he's going to be junk at the next level. But you immediately give Ben Johnson your Gibbs and David Montgomery behind a good interior offensive line and a young slinger quarter. I'm just saying, they should use the 39th and 41st overall pick on running backs, despite paying DeAndre Swift last year. It would be fucking elite. You know who else is going to be elite? It's going to be Travis Hunter, okay? Travis Hunter is going to end up drafted as the 2nd or 3rd overall player, and everything points to him being more of a cornerback than a wide receiver. But if you've watched him play wide receiver at all, he is an unreal talent relative to the rest of this class. And I know it would be a fucking outlier of all outliers if he were to play both ways. However, like, yes, he would be the fucking outlier. Travis Hunter, the Heisman winner, as the wide receiver, would be the outlier. I actually wouldn't even put it past a scenario happening here. Again, intrusive thoughts. I understand the odds of these things happening, they're long shots, but they are thoughts that I've had that I actually genuinely believe deep down have a decent chance of hitting. Would be surprised if shedeur really fell, but I wouldn't be surprised if they took Travis Hunter at 2, Cleveland, and then traded back up into the 1st to grab Shedeur Sanders later in the 1st round. Repairing shedeur and Travis Hunter together. I just think he's probably too talented. He's so good as a weapon that you can't keep him off the field. Like we keep saying, or I keep saying, or people keep saying, like, hey, he'll be on for a handful of snaps. I think he's going to get on for a handful of snaps and just be so fucking good that you're like, I can't take him off the field. All right. I think he's just going to end up being a dude who plays two ways and just become a legendary player. And we're all going to look back and be like, yeah, he did it in college literally the entire season. Why can't he do it again here? Yeah. So next take, that Ollie Gordon is such a stealer. He's just such a stealer. I don't really have a lot of logic behind it. He's like 225 pounds. He's like kind of like a plotter, tough nose. Like he's better than Benny Snell, but he's like kind of Benny Snell 2.0. A little bit better. Definitely a little bit better. But like, I don't know. He just feels like a Steeler to me. And they badly need someone to pair with Jaylen Warren. That's like Ollie Gordon. So Ollie Gordon to the Steelers. Now, Damien Martinez, the University of Miami running back, might be my favorite sleeper in this entire rookie class as it relates to the running back position. This is a great running back class. I'm going to be honest with you. If I had watched Damien Martinez film in last year's class, easily a top 5 back for me. If not, Jonathan Brooks was by far and away my number 1 in the class last year. I think had I paired Martinez's film with any of the other ones there, Trey Benson's, Marshawn Lloyd's, Blake Corum's, whoever, I think I might have come in with him as my RB 2, 3, or 4. I think that's how much I would have liked him in last year's grouping. Now, because this year's grouping is so strong, he's kind of falling back to that like 10, 12 range, which I don't necessarily like really blame people for. He didn't have a workload of like 300 carries, and he's a little bit lesser known, right? Miami's offense it's actually kind of crazy, the amount of draft capital they have going into this year. Like, you think of Miami as a good football team, and they started off really hot last year and then kind of just like flourished down the stretch. Not flourish, the opposite of flourish. Floundered down the stretch. Cam Ward's going to be a top 3 pick at worst. Elijah Arroyo, their tight end, their pass-catching tight ends, is going to be a day 2 pick and most likely in the second round. Xavier Restrepo, they're like really talented slot-ish wide receiver, is going to end up being a day 2 pick. And then Damien Martinez, who I think is one of the more underrated running backs in this class. Will he get day 2 capital? I really hope so. He kind of feels like a dude that might fall into round 4, unfortunately, but they have a lot of NFL firepower on that offense. So I love D. Martinez. I'm a Falcons fan, so like I don't really care if they draft him because we got Bijan, obviously, but like D. Mart, whoever gets him is going to get a steal. Next intrusive thought I had while I was watching Mason Taylor film. Mason Taylor is the tight end from LSU coming out this year in this year's draft. I was watching film, and there was a wide receiver on the outside. I kept watching Mason Taylor, and then I kept seeing, I'm like, at the corner of my eye, I kept seeing this one wide receiver just be elite. I'm like, this dude is fucking. It's like, imagine Kadarius Toney could run routes. Like, imagine Kadarius Toney was good at football. That's like what Kyren Lacy is. I kept seeing it out of the corner of my eyes. I'm watching Mason Taylor, and I'm like, oh my God, this receiver is good. He's explosive. His yak, his separation ability, like his hand body control, amazing. I'm like, oh, I must have accidentally turned on 2023 Mason Taylor tape, and that's just Malik Neighbors there. That's how good Kyren Lacy looked on film. And then I realized I was watching 2024 film, and I was like, who is that? Kyren Lacy. And again, I don't really watch a lot of college football throughout the year, but I do a ton of film breakdown, obviously, now at this point of the year. And I'm looking up Kyren Lacy. I'm like, he's draft eligible. How is this guy not a bigger, more hyped up name? Turns out he's got just a laundry list of off the field issues and all this kind of shit, which is going to keep him off of most NFL teams' boards. And I think he had something come in legally, like legit within the last month or so. So there's a good chance he doesn't even get drafted. But Kyren Lacy, holy shit, that man is good at football. And I'm not saying like I want the Falcons to use a draft pick on him, but bro, if he doesn't get drafted and we pick him up as a, with no strings attached, no risk after the draft or something like that, talent-wise, Kyren Lacy is as good as pretty much any receiver in this fucking class. At least from like the 17 pieces of film I saw. Next up, this is a Tyler Warren take. I think I've already put this take out there, but Tyler Warren, I think there's a non-zero chance he goes to Sean Payton, Denver, with their first-round pick, or to New Orleans, 2 teams or personnel that have utilized Taysom Hill extremely successfully. And again, Tyler Warren was used everywhere at Penn State, on the goal line, as a running back, as the quarterback in Wildcat. He can block, he could pass, he could catch, he could run, he can do it all. If he goes into the Taysom Hill role, obviously he's not going to play quarterback consistently. He'll be more of a receiver than a runner. But the point is, if they utilize him in a really versatile skill set, something that we've really never seen outside of Taysom Hill, but Tyler Warren gets that usage, I think we're underestimating how incredible he'll be at fantasy football. Because if you have a package installed where Tyler Warren is on the goal line, similar to any Taysom Hill team has basically had over the last 3 years, you just like kind of pad his stats with 3, 4, maybe 5 rushing touchdowns per season on top of a very high floor receiving total because he's a very good receiver. You're looking at a tight end that we've never really seen in fantasy before. Like, he won't put up the PPR numbers that like Brock Bowers is probably about to put up. But if you're talking about, imagine Taysom Hill but Taysom Hill had top 10 draft capital, and Taysom Hill is going to be the starter from day one, and Taysom Hill is this and all that, and has the receiving ability that Tyler Warren has. And I'm not expecting Tyler Warren to break away like 60-yard runs or anything like that, but I'm telling you, the floor of what he might be able to do as a rusher on the goal line is something that I think you can't overlook, because most tight ends end up falling in that like 5 to 7 range of touchdowns. You add 3 to 4 to the rushing game as a floor, I think there's a chance we look back and say like Tyler Warren was also an outlier, kind of like created a new position at the tight end position that Taysom Hill really did, but Tyler Warren I think is going to put it on the map, and he ends up becoming the best fantasy asset over the long period of time, right? Because tight ends obviously have a much longer career than a running back like Gent. Again, intrusive fucking thoughts. You want to get mad and yell, do it in the comment section. Second to last bullet on here, despite going for 170 yards from scrimmage, Harvey, his film versus Colorado might be some of the worst that I've watched, and I went into like a 5 or 6 minute film breakdown on this in the last rookie mock draft I did, so we will link that down below. If you want to just skip to like the last like 6 minutes, you'll see the full film breakdown of that. Again, explosive player. He had like 90 receiving yards that game, so he ended up going for about a $170 overall, but his running ability and his vision is spooky season. All right, I know that feels just like an unnecessary shot at Harvey, but these are intrusive thoughts. Like, I can't stop them. Intrusive thoughts are literally just like, I had this like crazy thought. It's real. Like, I don't have anything. There's no filter here. All right, so Harvey's film in that game might be some of the worst I've ever fucking watched in my entire life. Point number last. Minnesota low-key building a stalwart offensive line there after adding the Colts' Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. They will get Christian Darrisaw back. Brian O'Neill is a beast at the tackle position. Dalton Reisner, he's there, right? But they have such a solid offensive line right now. It is super underrated. They just gave Aaron Jones I think a 2-year, $20 million deal. So Jones might be a little bit undervalued. I don't think they want to use him as like a full workhorse, obviously, but like the fact that they gave him this type of money kind of clears the decks for them not going in the direction of like, let's use our first round pick on Omarion Hampton or something like that, in my opinion. Maybe it still happens and they just want to protect J.J. McCarthy as much as they can, but I think that's what they're doing in the re-signing of Aaron Jones, in the signing of Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. They have Jefferson and Addison and TJ Hawkinson. Like, the supporting cast for J.J. McCarthy is quite literally fail-proof. What other intrusive thoughts do I have that are not on this list? Okay, I was watching the TCU wide receivers, Jack Bech and Savion Williams, and Jack Bech is probably a 5 times better receiver than Savion Williams. Like, I actually think Savion Williams is borderline a wasted pick in your rookie drafts. Those are my intrusive thoughts. Let me know your intrusive thoughts down below. There's actually just nothing better than intrusive thoughts. Like, when they come to you and you're like, oh, this is so right, but like I can't really say it out loud, those are the best. 0% hit rate, but like in your heart, 100% hit rate. And that's what really matters at the end of the day. I don't even know what channel this is going up on, to be honest with you. I don't even know if it's getting to YouTube or if I'm just putting it on Twitter. But wherever you watch it, you're a good person for doing so. Love you, smoochies.